Hello, my name's Kayla Bartlett, and today I'm going to be doing my presentation on ancient Egyptian literature. In this PowerPoint, I'm going to be discussing 3 different time periods from ancient Egypt that were at the center of the history of Egyptian literature. The ancient Egyptians had many forms of writing, many different types of written works, just like we do today. They kept track of their history, court records, anything having to do with religion, and themselves. They did personal essays, autobiographies, biographies, and stories, myths, and legends. They would put these on many different surfaces. They like to inscribe on tombs, obelisks, temples, in something called a stele, which is an Egyptian monument. Here we have a picture of some Egyptian hieroglyphics inscribed onto a stele. Hieroglyphics were Egyptian writing. It was a way that they were able to put their words down on a surface and have other people read them and understand them. They are characters that look like pictures, and oftentimes the pictures related very much, if not completely, to the meaning of the word that they were trying to inscribe. The first part of this PowerPoint is going to be the Old Kingdom Egypt. This is from 2613 to 2181 BCE. They would put offering lists called heptanisus onto their tombs. This was quite literally translated as a boon given by the king. They would be lists of quantities and amounts of things like food and drinks and other necessities that they enjoyed during life that would be brought to them as offerings in the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that when we died, our souls lived on in the afterlife, so therefore they'd need things like food and wine and honey and other things of those sorts. Autobiographies were also written onto the tombs. These were always written after the person died, not before, and they were always written in first-person point of view. They basically told of how the person lived and their moralities and how well they did in life and treated others and how much they were deserved to be remembered. The popularity of these tomb writings were increased by a former writing called Catalogue of Virtues. They basically highlighted on how good or how well done a person had lived their life when it came to living by the standard of society. So here it says, is a quote from an article that said it accentuated the good a person had done in his or her life and how worthy they were of remembrance. So here I have an example of that, of something that would be inscribed onto a tomb, and it talks about how they loved their gods, they spoke truly and fairly to their peers around them, they respected their family and worked as hard as they could, and basically saying that they deserve to be remembered for all their hard work and how they lived their life. Middle Kingdom was from 2040 to 1782 BCE. This was considered Egypt's classical age. Middle Egyptian was created at this time. This was a type of hieroglyphics, a way that they would depict their writing. This is what we see mostly today in museums and on monuments, and when you think of Egyptian hieroglyphics, that's probably what's going to pop up in your mind first. These works of literature did a great job at expressing the complexities and depth of life and how one should live. They were didactic as well, so there were hidden messages and lessons in them that tried to teach you how to live by what was expected of you at the time as a citizen. One of the most famous ones being Dispute Between a Man and His Ba. This is the oldest written work about suicide in the world, and it's about a conversation between the narrator and his soul about all of the difficulties of life and how a person is supposed to live. Death is always going to seem sooner to us than later when we finally reach that doorway, and we want to have spent it living well. And this one kind of dives into how you do that, or what that would kind of look like talking to yourself about it. The last one is the New Kingdom. This one was from 1782 to 1570 BCE, also known as the Second Intermediate Period by historians. During this time, parts of Egypt were at war with each other, well, not war, but conflict with each other, and fighting over who got what, kind of. So the text and literature of the time really centered around religion and hymns. The two famous gods of this time were Amun or Osiris, and Isis. Stories and poems dealing with everyday conflicts and injustices were what these were mainly about during this time. And just some examples would be unfaithful spouses, or the panic of one not living their life to the best before they die. There were a lot of similarities between Middle and New Kingdom writing, but the major difference is that New Kingdom texts included other cultures and values outside of Egyptian ones. So, like, outside of Egypt itself. This kind of documented when Egypt was really kind of branching out into the rest of the world, and they definitely documented that in their literature. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hoped you could learn something you may not have known before.